Hi guys, I'm Kesha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I'm here to make another one of those videos in which I talk about all the upcoming releases in order to increase your TBR piles.
It's coffee time!
Today I'm here to talk about some upcoming book releases for the month of September, and these are all either thrillers or horror books. There's a little bit of middle grade YA in adult. There is a lot of books coming out in September, but it makes sense because obviously they want to get people hyped up for October and Halloween season, which I'll take it. But I do have a list of, I think, 56 or 57 books, so it's a lot. So today more than ever, grab yourself a good cup of any beverage of your choice and let's get started. We have Saraphina by Philip Fracassi, and this is adult horror. During one of the most violent battles in the Civil War, three brothers decide to leave without consent, so to say. So they are scared, of course, of the consequences of leaving the battlefield and not report to anybody, just kind of flee the scene. But they rather, be reprimanded than die in the field because the battle is getting really nasty. After several exhausting weeks of walking, they actually find kind of like a little cottage, like a little house, and they feel like they have been finally saved. In this remote cabin, they find a woman that lives there called Saraphina and her son Titus. She takes the soldiers in, she offers them to stay, gives them food, and everything seems to be perfect. But from the three soldier brothers, the younger one starts to think that maybe there's something wrong with these people, that it's all too good to be true. So we will have to discover what are the horrors. Maybe they exchanged the horrors of war for something even worse. We Came to Welcome You by Vincent Tirado, and this is adult horror, and it is the author's debut when it comes to adult. The author has a YA book that I actually need to read, by the way. As a reminder to myself, it is this one, Burn Down, Rise Up, because I've had this one for a while on my TBR and I still have not read it. But the author's new release, people say it's Midsommar combined with The Other Black Girl, which was a thriller that I was also interested in reading, but I also haven't yet. It is a psychological horror and people have also kind of compared it to Jordan Peele, so I am here for it. We follow Sol Reyes, and she hasn't had a really good year at all. Everything has been going wrong at work, and also to top all of it, she has been accused now of plagiarism. Also, every time she visits her father, she doesn't have a good time because her father is homophobic. But Sol has a partner, Alice, and she's always very optimistic, always sees like the good side of things, so I guess they kind of balance each other out. The two girls finally manage to buy a new home in a community that is supposed to be a really good place to live in, but the neighbors seem to be a little bit, not the best, let's say. There's a lot of microaggression and a lot of things that Sol is not happy about, weird incidents in the house, and Alice brush everything off and she's like, it's just like we're just adjusting to here to these people, everything is gonna be okay. But Sol knows deep down that there's something really dark and secret in this neighborhood. American Ghoul by Michelle McGill Vargas, and this is horror with vampires. This is a debut from the author that combines horror and social commentary, and it's supposed to be a new take on vampires. Lavinia is a recently freed slave, and she meets Simone, who is a recently undead vampire. They meet at a plantation post-Civil War, and they decide that they have the same goal, so they're kind of gonna team up, leave the south, try to go to the north. But Lavinia, I don't think she thought things through before teaming up with an undead white girl. And things, as they travel, don't get very easy because obviously Simone needs to feed on blood. But Lavinia is starting to regret her decision because, of course, the things that Simone does kind of compromise her morals. And she's gonna start to wonder if she has basically rejected a form of enslavement for another. And Sounds like very intriguing and interesting take on vampires, one that feels kind of very realistic. So I'm really excited about this one because everything with vampires is something that I'm always automatically interested in. Hound, Sweet Home by Sarah Pinsker, and this is a horror novella. We are in a kitschy reality TV show, and it is a TV show where they stage the scares to record them. And as you might already assume, as they are looking for ideas of how to stage the next scare and building props and doing everything that they do to achieve that, they suddenly realize that there must be something going on there. There seems to be some sort of presence, a ghostly presence, so they might have actually recorded something real and not staged. The Haunting of Moscow House, and this is by Olesya Salnikova Gilmore, and this is horror gothic historical fiction. This is a gothic tale that is set in post-revolutionary Russia, and we follow two sisters that are trying to kind of uncover family secrets, but they will also end up uncovering something way darker. It is 1921, and the house where the sisters live, their mansion, has been now occupied by officials and others, and so they have taken over this house, and the sisters have been kind of pushed to live in the attic. The sisters are desperate to flee, to run away, but then there are some spirits that awaken in the house from their ancestors, and that's what is gonna allow them to unveil a lot of the family secrets. The Marriage Test by Ellie Monago, and this is a mystery thriller. One tropical island, 4 couples, and a TV show that is supposed to help them save their marriage. But the people behind the cameras know that that is a lie. They are actually there because they want to reveal all the secrets to the world one by one. We follow a surgeon and his partner. He's very successful, but that life of luxury comes because something really dark that he did in the past. A young couple is expecting a baby, but have they been faithful to each other? And 2 other couples will join them with many secrets that are going to be unveiled one by one in this TV show. Also, some of the people on the island, some of those couples, have met before. Will they be able to live together, and what will happen with all the secrets come to light? Is any of them going to get hurt or even murdered? Next we have a YA fantasy that is going to be a trilogy, and I wanted to mention it because it is about vampires. It is called Immortal Dark Trilogy. So the first book is going to be called Immortal Dark, and it's by Taijist Girma. It's supposed to be like a very romantic, dark academia kind of fantasy, and it says it's for people that loved The Cruel Prince and Ninth House. I've read both of those. Ninth House was not for me. The Cruel Prince was just okay for me. I think it's just not my type of book. But this one, you know, has vampires, which is something that just makes me weak. We follow an orphaned heiress called Kitten, and her purpose right now is to infiltrate in an arcane society because she believes the vampire that killed her family and kidnapped her sister lives in that society. So she wants to get there, get revenge, and get her sister back. The Reunion, and this is co-written by MJ Arledge and Stephanie Bradrib, and is a mystery thriller. It is the demolition day of White Cross Academy, so some of the old teachers and pupils have come to kind of say goodbye to the building, to the place where they have spent so many years, but then everything has to be stopped because they find something. They find a human skull. This is the first big case for the detective that has been assigned to solve this mystery, and they find out that the skull belongs to a student that had disappeared. We're going to follow the detective as he finds some of the suspects and people that knew the deceased, obviously, people that were in contact with her, her best mates, and there's going to be an investigation and interviews and all that good stuff, and I do love myself a good murder mystery. Pay the Piper, and this is also co-written by George A. Romero and Daniel Kraus, and this is adult horror. This is a supernatural horror, and it obviously you know, is about the Piper, this kind of like supernatural entity. There's been 2 movies about the Piper, I think this year, both of them, and I did watch one of them and I really enjoyed it, and I really like the legend of the Piper. If you don't know about the legend, it's basically the Piper that comes and plays a song, and then the kids are compelled to follow him to his realm, and basically children go missing whenever the Piper is around. So I'm expecting this book is exactly about that. How to Survive a Horror Movie by Scarlett Dunmore, and this is YA horror, and I have this one already pre-ordered because, you know, the title, just like I had to have it. We follow Charlie. She's a horror enthusiast, but she is starting at a new boarding school and she doesn't want to be the weird one, so she is trying to kind of blend in, but then some of her classmates, some of her schoolmates are being murdered. And not only that, but Charlie is also now seeing the ghosts of the deceased schoolmates, so sounds like a lot of fun. Lucy Undying by Kirsten White, and this is a horror vampire retelling, and I'm going to need this one because obviously it's kind of like a Dracula retelling in a way. It's just talking about the character of Lucy, and I'ma need it. I'ma need it. It is about Lucy Westenra, and she was one of the first victims of Dracula. I loved her character in the Coppola film, and I love this book cover as well. So like I said, I'm gonna need this. Of course, it follows Lucy after she dies and comes back from the dead, and how many years later she arrives to the 21st century and she meets a woman that she didn't expect to, and her connection with her and all the dangers that come with it. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a non-fiction, and this is a book about cults, so it is a true crime non-fiction book, and I'm also gonna need this one. It's called Cult Following: The Extreme Sects That Capture Our Imagination and Take Over Our Lives by J.W. Ocker. It's going to be basically a compendium of some of the most popular cults that have been, you know, known to us, because I'm pretty sure there's some that we don't know of. It's also about the psychology, you know, of people that join them, the people that create them. And it kind of also explains a little bit how some of the smart people, intelligent people can also end up in this type of cults. Now You Owe Me by Alaya Wright, and this is a thriller. Ben and his twin witnessed a murder when they were just 7 years old, and that kind of turned them into people that were really interested in killing. And so at some point in their lives, they both started to have a kind of like a killing spree, and they would just kill, and they realized that they had to stop, but they decided to get one last victim, but they picked the wrong one. I'm excited about this one because it sounds like a serial killer thriller, and I do love those. Fierce Tales of Psychological Horror, and this is edited by Ellen Dutlow. We all know Ellen. She puts together so many of these cool short story compilations. They're always all horror. Sometimes they have themes. In this case, we have psychological horror. In this new anthology, you will find 21 different and new horror stories. Incarnate by Richard Thomas, and this is horror. I think this is going to be a little bit supernatural and a little bit kind of fantasy-ish, because the main character, Sebastian, he is what people call a scene eater, a shaman that basically helps the people get rid of their sins and everything that they have done before they can cross over to the other side. But then one day there is a breach between, you know, reality and the other world, and some of the monsters are starting to come into the real world. This is going to be a really dark horror tale and kind of a battle between good and evil. Not a Speck of Light by Laird Barron, and these are short horror stories. So this is the 5th short horror story compilation by the author. And there is a total of 16 different stories. William by Mason Coyle, and this is horror sci-fi. And I'm really, really intrigued about this one because we have here a horror that talks about AI. And there is a new horror movie coming out shortly called I think Afraid. And the trailer looks kind of interesting, so I'm now in the mood also to read this book and kind of compare how both the book and the movie have approached this theme, even though they are different stories. This is said to be kind of like a haunted house story, but the thing is, it's not hunted by a ghost, it is hunted by the AI, and I think that is genius. Plus, I love this cover. Henry is a brilliant engineer, and he has created this amazing robot that he has called William, and William is an AI. No one knows about William. Henry is someone that is kind of like, he has a little bit of agoraphobia. He doesn't like to go outside. He spends most of his time in the attic with his creations, and he doesn't even see his wife much. One day his wife's co-workers come to the house, and Henry is like, you know what, I'm gonna show them William. And I'm guessing things don't go well from there. Guillotine by Delilah S. Dawson, and this is a horror thriller. They say this is a mix between The Menu and Ready or Not, which are two movies that I absolutely adored and I would rewatch anytime, so I'm already hooked. We follow a thrift fashionista called Des, and the guy she's dating, she's not dating him because she really likes him, it's because she actually wants to meet his mom, because she's someone that she's been trying to meet for years and one of her idols. It is the editor-in-chief in a Nouveau magazine, and so she's really thrilled and excited when they are invited to meet the family during Easter. And when she gets there to their mansion in this kind of island, she understands what luxury actually means. And when the last ferry is gone and there is no way to get out of there, the servants of the family have had enough of being mistreated, and I think they rebel against the family members. So I see here a little bit of that comparison with Ready or Not. They Thought They Buried Us by Nonieka Ramos, and this is a YA horror. Horror fan and aspiring film director Yuitha gets a scholarship to go to a very prestigious boarding school. When he gets there, he realizes that it's almost impossible to follow the schedule that he has with all of these different classes and all of these different things that he has to prepare. The textbooks are also very expensive. So he ends up going into debt, but he also ends up realizing that the behavior of the students is quite weird. Yuitha starts to have disturbing dreams about the past of this boarding school. Will he be able to survive and get out of there before it's too late? So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, and this is adult horror with vampires. I obviously have this one in pre-order and I'm really excited about it. They are giving me many new vampire books. I think they are slowly making a comeback this year, and I'm not even mad. We follow Sloane, and she is dreading her birthday. She doesn't like getting older because it's a reminder that she's getting older, but her husband wanted to do something nice for her, so she surprises her with a weekend getaway, but not to go with him, but to go with her best friend Naomi. When they get there, Naomi has other plans for Sloane. She doesn't want her to be just bored in the hotel, just with, you know, going to the spa and all of those boring things. Naomi wants her friend Sloane to enjoy life, so they decide to go out for the night. And they decide to go out with some mysterious strangers, and after that night, they will not be the same again. I'm really excited about this one. It does have the trope of friends going to a weekend getaway to a cottage, which is similar to what we had in The Return a little bit, so I think I'm gonna really enjoy this. Harvesting the Nightmare Fields by Ross Jeffrey, and this is horror. Our main character has been just rescued from a horrible car crash, and the person that rescued our main character is a farmer. So our main character doesn't have any memories of what happened and does not even remember their name. But as our main character starts remembering, there's going to be a lot of demons that are gonna come to the surface. This World Is Not Yours by Kemi Ashing-Giwa, and this is horror sci-fi novella. Vin Amara decides to flee her family and decides to enroll for a colonization project in which they're going to go to another planet, but it's a little bit hostile, and they're gonna try to colonize it in the most peaceful way possible, but things are not gonna go really well for them, and they're gonna end up in a pickle. This is horror sci-fi. It is a novella, so it's quite short, so I do appreciate that we don't know too many details yet about everything, and I might pick this one up because I always say I need to read more horror sci-fi, and normally sci-fi books tend to be quite chunky, but this is a novella, so this is going to be my saving grace. The Doll's House, and this is a short story by Lisa Unger. A widowed mother decides to move in with her fiancé, and she moves into his place with her teenage daughter, but then they realize that there is something going on in that house. They find a doll in that house, and he explains it belonged to his sister and he wants the teenage girl to have the doll, but soon they will realize that not everything he has been telling is actually true. Old Wounds by Logan Ashley Kisner, and this is YA horror. Erin and Max are just two trans kids that are just trying to get to California. Max is desperate to start her transition and she wants to do that in California. And Erin is not really sure why she's joining Max because Max broke up with her 2 years ago. But as they start their road trip, they're gonna find themselves stranded. Not just that, but they will be separated in the middle of the woods in America, and there's going to be a lot more than just trees there, let me tell you that. I believe this is a creature feature as well, and I remember that this book was pitched to me at YALC before it even had like a cover or anything at all, so I'm really happy to see that it's coming out now. The house on the cover of a horror novel, and this is by E.V. Knight, and this is adult horror. We follow an artist called Emily, and she has been commissioned to do the artwork for a book cover, a horror book, and she draws inspiration from a house that she finds, and she thinks it's very creepy, looks very haunted, and she decides to use that house and starts sketching it in order to use it for the book cover. But her husband finds the sketches and he thinks, oh, she really likes this house. And so he decides to buy the house for them and they move in. And when they do, Emily realizes that the house is actually truly haunted. Under a Howling Moon by Gabrielle Dillon, and this is the third book in the Shiver Point collection, and this is for middle grade readers. I do own the other two paperbacks, so I will be adding this one to the collection. Ollie is very excited for his birthday because he's going to go on a camping trip with his friends, and he's hoping to toast the marshmallows and, you know, tell each other scary stories in the dark. But then when they are there, they see kind of the shape of a beast breaking into one of the tents. One of the fathers goes missing, so as I can tell by the title and the cover, this is going to be a werewolf story, and I'm really excited, and I think these covers look so cute, all of them so far, and I'm really excited for kids to have now something similar to Goosebumps, but you know, a little bit more contemporary for them. Nowhere, Ohio, and this is by Brian Wayne Dull, and this is adult horror. Interestingly enough, this book also deals with werewolves, or at least our 14-year-old main character thinks so. We are in Ohio, and there has been a lot of animal attacks, brutal murders, and people are questioning what's going on and who is killing all of these animals. Then we have 14-year-old Ryan that is really burdened with the parents' divorce, a distant older brother, and a mother that is battling cancer. Like, there's a lot going on in this kid's life, and so the kid starts to suspect that the adults in town turn into werewolves at night. You know, I have read books like this before, but I'm always up here for a good werewolf story. This is a horror book that is supposed to draw inspiration from real life and also has a lot of 80s nostalgia. Crazy for You by Marnie Vinch, and this is a mystery thriller. We follow ex-pop star Victoria, and one day she receives a very disturbing picture of her friend Nikki that was murdered years ago. But the most concerning thing of her getting this picture is that she's actually the one that killed Nikki. Nikki's death was officially ruled an accident, but our main character Victoria always felt guilty, and that is one of the reasons why she stopped being a pop singer. The other reason is that she got a really bad stalker. This is a dark psychological thriller, and it will be interesting to know what actually happened to Nikki and why Victoria is now getting a picture of her deceased ex-best friend. Evil in Me by Brom, and this is adult horror fantasy. Now, I have to yet read one of his books, but they all look amazing. The covers are always stunning, and this is another one of them. It says it's a book about possession, damnation, and rock and roll, so I love this blend. It follows obviously a rock band, and I think one of the members, they were cleaning something or fixing something. When they find a ring, they put it on, and now that person is possessed. And apart from that cool story, you also have a lot of many new illustrations by the author. I haven't read anything yet by the author, but I think the first one I'm gonna be reading this year is Lufoot, because that's part of my 12 by 12 challenge, and I am really excited to get to that one. My Sister's Downfall by S.M. Thomas, and this is a mystery thriller. We follow two sisters that live together, and one of them one day starts screaming, and at the end of the day she decides to jump off the window, plummet herself, and the other sister doesn't know what to do, but of course it's already too late because gravity, you know, does its thing, and the poor sister ends up dead. And so it is a tale about the two sisters that were successful career women, and we want to know why one of them decided to commit suicide, and also we will uncover all the secrets and things they never told each other. Next we have a book called Hampton Heights, One Harrowing Night in the Most Haunted Neighborhood in Milwaukee, Wisconsin by Dan Coys, and this is adult horror. This sounds like a fun 80s kind of creature feature, almost fun time of a book. I'm pretty sure it's more serious than I anticipate, but it follows 6 paperboys in 1987, and they are delivering these newspapers in the middle of the night, and they have been promised, I think, a dinner at Burger King or something if they do it, and they are in groups of 2, and every group of 2 will encounter different monsters and demons that they will have to fight. I love the idea of this, and it's probably one of those coming of age stories with kind of a little bit maybe of a found family between these kids. I don't know, but it sounds great, and it's also based in the 80s, which I love. Ruin Road by Lamar Giles, and this is YA horror. We follow Cade, and he lives kind of between 2 worlds. At school, he's, you know, feared and respected, and he is successful, but then he lives in the wrong neighborhood. He's also black, so one night, in order to avoid kind of an encounter with the police, he runs into a pawn shop. And he tells the owner that he would love for people to be less scared of him because he's very big, he is, you know, heavy, and he is very tall and black, and people tend to be scared of him. And that pawn shop owner might be able to grant him his wish. So this reminds me a little bit, just slightly, to Needful Things by Stephen King, where people in a small town go to this pawn shop kind of thing, and they end up always finding what they're looking for, but it has a price. So I'm guessing that if this guy is helping him, it's going to have obviously a high price. Stage Fright by Wendy Paris, and this is a middle grade horror. This is a new locked room scary story, and we follow 12-year-old Avery, and she decides to invite some of her friends to perform a seance in a closed theater. So when they get in, they close the doors, they get ready, they perform their seance, and then they realize that there's actually something in there with them, and now they cannot get out. An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson, and this is adult fantasy horror. This is Dark Academia, and it comes by the author that wrote The Witching Hour and House of Hunger. And House of Hunger I read this year and I really enjoyed, so I'm excited about this new one, especially being Dark Academia, which is something of a hit or a miss for me, but I have faith in this author. Lennon's life is falling apart, but then one day she receives a call asking her to try to do the test to get into a very secret and prestigious magic school, and it's really hard to get an invitation for it. And so our main character is thrilled and obviously wants to leave the life that she has and go to the school. She manages to pass the test, so she's good to go to enter the school, and they're gonna help her with her gift and her powers. And I'm guessing when she's in this school, she's going to realize that this place is not exactly what she had dreamed of, and there's a lot of dark secrets are hidden in these hallways. Dearest by Jackie Walters, and this is adult horror. Flora is a new mom, and she's trying to navigate, what it is to be a new mom while her husband is still deployed. So she ends up accepting the help of her mom, but when she opens the door for her mom to come in, something else comes in with her. She feels like she's losing the grip on reality, so this is going to have a little bit of psychological horror in it, and it says that it's a book perfect for people that love Grady Hendrix. Bitter is the Heart by Mina Hardy, and this is adult horror. This novel explores generational trauma because we have here a girl that was abused by her mother when she was a kid, but now she needs to take care of her mom because she's very sick. Tamar fled her home and left her mother behind when she was 18 because her mother was being abusive to her. But now her mother is very sick and she comes to Tamar asking for help, and she decides to open the door to her mom even though she's the last person that she wants to see or talk to. This seems to be quite the heavy one with a lot of trauma and a lot of sadness to it, plus the content warning for child abuse. I don't know how much it is kind of like depicted in the book, but it is part of the main plot, so I am assuming there's going to be some talk about it. Gaslight, and this one is co-written by Miles Joris Payarfit and Sarah Shepard, and this is a thriller. This is a book that talks about cults, a book that talks about, how easy it is to influence young minds and how fragile friendships and marriages can be. Rebecca is living a peaceful life with her husband, Tom, and they have 2 kids together, but one day a stranger comes knocking. It is Danny, so not a complete stranger because Rebecca knows him. She knows him from her past life. So there are things about Rebecca that she has not told her husband, Tom, but now that Danny is here, there's a lot of those memories that are gonna come right back. So I'm guessing Rebecca probably was part of a cult and Danny was in it too, because if this book is about cults, I'm guessing that's going to be kind of what binds these 2 characters together. And I'm intrigued. Everything about cults I find really, really fascinating. Such lovely skin, and this is a YA horror. Biv is a chronic liar. She knows that she is responsible for the accident that killed her little sister. And now she's kind of moving on. She's going back to Twitch because she's a gamer and she kind of goes back to her old life. But there's a lot of things that she hasn't talked about, especially a lot of things that involve the accident and what actually happened that night. She's doing an offline practice of a horror game that she wants to play in Twitch, but then she ends up confessing about what happened to her sister, and in doing so, she invites a demonic presence. Nobody believes her when she talks about this evil that has now entered her life, and I'm really curious about this one. I would like to know, why is she hiding things from the accident, what happened that night, and why is this demon so interested in them? Next we have an anthology perfect for October. It's called October Screams, a Halloween anthology, and it's edited by Kenneth W. Kane. And in this one, you're gonna get 27 short horror stories, perfect to start fall and to get into the Halloween spirit. There are many well-known authors in this compilation. Some of them are Brian Keane and Richard Chismar. We have Gemma Amor. We have Kellen Patrick Burke, Clint MacLeod Chapman. We have Philip Fracassi, Todd Gisling, and Ronald Malfi. Like a lot of well-known authors. All the Devils by Caitlin Wilson, and this is YA fantasy horror gothic. Andy is mourning the sudden death of her sister, and she doesn't know how she's going to be able to move on without her. She is already missing Violet so much, but then in the day of the actual funeral, Andy realizes that the body inside of the casket is not her sister's. So is Violet alive? She's convinced that her sister is alive, so she decides to enroll in the boarding school where her sister was going to when everything happened, and determined to find out where she is and what happened. Figada by Tanya Pell, and this is a horror novella, and this is part of the Killer VHS collection, and this is number 4. Ash is stranded in a rural horror film festival about a killer cicada, and she doesn't know what she hates the most, to be there or her stupid boyfriend. But then she realizes that she's actually already starring in the sequel because there is a giant cicada coming for everybody there. Sweetest Darkness by Leslie Lutz, and this is a YA horror thriller. Everyone in this town knows that there is a very specific hotel that changes at night that is haunted. And Queen believes in it as well. She is a teenager, but she is a clairvoyant, so she has some special powers, and she decides that it is time for her to go to this hotel. She's having dreams that are pushing her to go to the hotel. Everything is related to there. So she thinks that her only way out of this is to go actually to the hotel at night and see what's happening there. Devils Kill Devils, and this is by Johnny Compton, and this is a horror thriller with vampires. Sarita has been watched over by a guardian angel her whole life, and she calls him Angelo. But Angelo one day actually murders one of her loved ones, and she decides that it is time to take action. Sarita is starting to see what actually has been following her in the shadows. And that is all we know, so it is really mysterious, and it is again about vampires, so I need to know. Gravey Art Shift by M.L. Rio, and this is a horror novella. We follow a group of 5 people that love to go to a local cemetery at night until they can find maybe a story or proof of ghosts or whatever. So they like to do that, but then one day they find a hole that was not there before. There is an open grave where no grave should be, but who dug it and what was in there? They see the grave digger and they are still hiding, but they kind of follow him to try to figure out what's going on in the cemetery. And it sounds very interesting. Also, the 5 people that go to the cemetery couldn't be more different from each other, and they have nothing to do with the cemetery or the paranormal. So I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic when it comes to the characters as well. Kill Your Darling by Clay MacLeod Chapman, and this is a horror novella. Glenn's 50-year-old son was found dead, and the police still has no clues on who killed him. Glenn refuses to let her son's story die and not find any closure, so she decides to write about it and share her story, and that is when someone is going to react to her story, and I guess we're going to learn a lot more about how her son died. Shallow Ends by David James Keaton, and this is adult horror. So this is going to be one of those where you have a group of people that have secrets, right? So we follow a group of friends that are trying to celebrate a birthday party. I think it's like 13 of them, and they're all in a party bus, you know, a bus that has been modified to party on the inside, you know, with a lot of music and lights and stuff. And the bus is driving, they're having fun, they're enjoying their party, when they realize that there's something wrong with the driver. The driver will not stop driving, and it turns into a horrifying tale. I believe we get also different POVs from the characters that are going to tell us kind of like their background story and why they are now inside of the bus. And I'm really excited about this one because it sounds fun, and I do love a good mystery where you have friends are supposed to be friends with a lot of secrets, and where you have to figure out why are they being punished and who is responsible. We Kept Her in the Cellar by W.R. Gorman, and this is horror fantasy retelling. This is a very dark retelling of Cinderella, and it's told from the POVs of the sisters. Well, the stepsisters to be more precise, and I'm guessing they're going to be as mean or worse than they were in the original story. Our main character is Eunice, who in this book is going to be our Cinderella, and she has a very special power, and that is why her stepsisters are basically there to keep her locked in the house and to keep her powers kind of hidden from everybody else, but Eunice wants to break free. We will have her attend the ball, get the shoe, and that will unleash her, make her free, and also free her powers. So I'm guessing this is going to be a more dark, kind of horrifying retelling of the story, with probably worse consequences than the original tale. But I'm interested because you don't see so many Cinderella retellings in horror. Most of the retellings are based on Dracula or Frankenstein, you know, one of those horror classics. So it sounds interesting. Monster movie by Chuck Wendig, and this is middle grade. I don't know if this is his first middle grade, but probably it is. I still have to read his books. I have had some of his books on my TBR, but I still have not read them. It's about a boy having to face his worst fears in order to save his friends from an evil videotape, something like that. And I'm like, yes, please. It sounds like so much fun and a little bit nostalgic, and I'm gonna need this one. Don't Eat the Pie by Monique Asher, and this is horror mystery. Newlywed Sam has always dreamt of a perfect family life, and she's always been very dedicated to her family. So when her mother-in-law falls ill, she decides to move there with her in order to help care for her. But when she moves to that community in which mostly older women live, she realizes that there is something weird in this place. She's received with open arms and cocktail parties and everything is cool until it's not. The house next to her mother-in-law's looks like a very creepy house, and not only that, but that is where Ben's first wife died. It seems that there are ghosts in the place trying to warn them, Sam and her teenage daughter, probably to get out of there. And we will see what happens. Mostly in these cases, they don't get out of there fast enough, but we shall see. The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Rubble, and this is a horror thriller, and I've been excited about this one as well. It's basically a fanatic of Hitchcock that has invited with a purpose some people to spend the night on a themed hotel about the filmmaker. Alfred is such a fan of Hitchcock that he has created, he's the owner of this hotel dedicated to his movies, and there is memorabilia and there is props, and he has invited some people over to celebrate this new hotel. He invites these people over that he has not seen in like 16 years, so I wonder why he has invited them there. I'm guessing it's not gonna end up well, at least for one or two of them. Tiny Threads by Lilian Rivera, and this is a horror thriller. This is a story of supernatural suspense, and we have a young woman that gets her dream job working for a famous designer, like a clothing designer, and she realizes that there is a very dark side to all of that glamour. Our main character has a lot of pressure because they have an upcoming, show, and she has to make sure that everything is perfect. And she's starting to have nightmares as well, apart from seeing things that are not supposed to be there. So she might think, I guess, that it's due to the stress of the work, but there might be something else in there. The Ravening by Danielle Church, and this is supernatural horror. This is a page-turning horror thriller that is for fans of The Only Good Indians by Stephen Grant Jones. Gina's life has always been a fight. She lost her mother in an accident that happened. It was a very mysterious accident that happened on some road, and now she has finally escaped an abusive relationship with her ex-boyfriend now, and she's ready to have a new life, but she has learned that trusting people only ends up hurting you. This is a claustrophobic horror novella that explores Jenna's kind of getting to move on a little bit in her life, meeting a new partner, but there is still a lot of evils and things from her past that are haunting her. Sleep Tight by J.H. Marquardt, and this is a horror thriller. In this one, we follow a serial killer called Father Silence. They call him Father because he pretended to be a priest and dressed up as one to approach his victims, because who wouldn't trust a priest? And Silence because from the moment he was arrested, he didn't say another word. So in his basement they found 19 bodies, 15 adults, 4 kids, and also they found a survivor, a little boy that was still alive. Father Silence was convicted and he was sentenced to death. Now he has been executed, and shortly after, kids are going missing again and people are being brutally murdered. So we're going to follow a detective that is assigned to the case, and it's a case that is really close to home for our detective, and it's going to be a very interesting cat and mouse game. So if you like thrillers that have serial killers, this one might be for you. Withered Hill, and this is by David Burnett, and it is a dark and unsettling British folk horror novel. A year ago, Sophie managed to get to this small village, and she managed to get there without any recollection, any memory of who she is. She got there naked, she didn't know who she was, what her name was, and she arrived to the small village of Withered Hill, and that all happened a year ago. This village seems to be very different, very focused on rituals, on the woods, and every time she tries to escape, she's not really able to. The people from this village are trapping her in there. She's starting to have memories of her older life, and she starts to realize that she might have ended in a very dangerous place. She has no idea who to trust, and she can't get out of there, so how is she going to be able to survive it? Let's Split Up by Bill Wood, and this is YA horror, and this is another one that I have pre-ordered. The author is coming to Yelk, and I think this is going to be such a fun read. When the It couple from school is murdered at a mansion, a group of teenagers decide to go there to investigate and try to figure out what happened. Which, bad idea, I know, but I think this book is going to take those fun horror tropes and exploit them for a little bit of humor. And I think if that is done right, it can be so much fun for a horror lover. So I have really high hopes for this. Things We Never Say by Caitlin Weaver, and this is a mystery thriller. Anna has always been very quiet, she doesn't speak to too many people, but then she's paired with 2 other women for a project at work, and the women will meet for, to discuss things, to have some wine together, and that is when some dark secrets from their lives will come to light. We're going to learn that their lives are not as picture perfect as they want us to believe, and I think this is probably one of those mysteries, kind of like Desperate Housewives kind of style, so if you love those mysteries, this might be good for you. It's a tale about scandal, solidarity, the friendship between these 3 women, and it's said that is for people that enjoyed the book Big Little Lies. And that is the last book that I had to mention today. Wow, that was a very, very long list. My coffee is now officially cold, but we don't throw out coffee in this house. I'm still gonna drink all of it, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you found many interesting new releases here that you are willing to check out. Maybe I reminded you of books that are coming out that you forgot were coming out. And I hope that since having middle grade, YA, adult, and a little bit of everything in here, you enjoyed it. I did include a couple of fantasy horror because they had vampires in them, and I love myself a good vampire book. So let me know down below if there is any other books that are coming out in September that you are excited about that I did not mention here. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you guys as always so much for watching. Please consider joining my Patreon to support me and the channel, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye!